Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Caitlin. I'm an American who's moving to Australia at the end of the year to be with her Australian boyfriend. Obviously, I have some experience in dating an Australian guy, and when I saw this article, I knew I had to react to it. So this is an article from the Matador Network in 2018 titled The 11 Commandments of Dating an Australian Guy. So just as a little disclaimer, this article isn't meant to be taken seriously. It's all just kind of poking fun at Australian culture, at dating culture in general. Nothing about this is meant to be taken too seriously, but I do want to let you guys know there will be a trigger warning in this video. I will drop it down below. There is mention of suicide, so I want to make sure that you are fully aware of that going into this. I will let you know right beforehand when it happens, and I'll let you know when to skip to in the video, so that way if this is a triggering experience for you, don't worry about it, skip over that part of the video. I completely understand. And if you need to reach out to anyone, there are some resources I have listed down below for you guys. This is a very important topic and I wanted to give it the attention it deserves. So without further ado, these are the 11 commandments of dating an Australian guy. Number 1, thou shalt recognize one religion, sport. This is going to be different from person to person. Not everybody in Australia is a sports person, and also not everyone is into the same kind of sports. There are some people, men and women, who are sports obsessed, who are diehard fans of their teams, and then there are others who couldn't care less whether they ever watch a sports game for the rest of their life. Like, I know as an American, football is huge here, so NFL football, American football, gridiron, as it's like to be called over in Australia apparently, even though I've never heard it called gridiron when I was over there. If they call it gridiron, drop a comment down below and let me know. NFL is huge here. There are some people whose Sundays are completely dedicated to watching football. Some people have to watch every single game that their team plays throughout the entire season. But hey, if you're a sports person, go for it, knock yourself out. This isn't really something that I would say is Australia specific and isn't something I would call a commandment of dating an Australian guy. I think this kind of goes for Western cultures and probably a lot of cultures in general. If your partner's into sports, be prepared to watch a lot of sports. Or at least be prepared for them to spend a lot of time in front of the TV watching a lot of sports. And the second commandment, thou shalt respect his sporting calendar. Now for this one, there's definitely a balance that needs to be met. Like, if you know that your partner enjoys a particular sport, a particular hobby, giving them the space to actually enjoy it is really important, and it's healthy in any relationship on both sides. But it can also go too far if you or your partner have a hobby or a sport that you love that's taking up way too much time, that's causing conflict and tension in your relationship. There really needs to be some strong communication between the two of you as to what the issue is. If you guys are canceling plans, if you're not going out because the sport or hobby is taking over a huge chunk of time and a big part of your life, that's going to be a really big problem. It's obviously not healthy and something that the two of you need to sit down and communicate about. Not all Australian guys are into sports. This is kind of a stereotype, and yes, there are a lot of Aussies who are into sports. I think this is kind of all across different cultures and isn't specific to Australia. Number 3, thou shalt do his footy betting for him. So I have no idea what footy betting actually involves. I know that footy is a type of sport over there, and obviously it means some kind of sports betting going off of the context. But before I read this article, I've never heard of footy betting before. And I don't totally understand the logic behind having your partner who doesn't know anything about the sport make the bet on your behalf, unless maybe it's some kind of superstitious thing, maybe your partner's really lucky at what they pick, or maybe you're just really bad at it yourself, even if you know the sport.
You can spot these assholes by watching the way they bet. Like this guy. He's betting lavender chips at 500 each with only one little problem. He's always guessed right.
I'm starting to think that the author of this article clearly was dating somebody who's sports obsessed. We're already 3 commandments in and everything has been about sports. And we finally get a bit of a sports break with number 4, thou shalt enjoy a different kind of romance.
This is amazing.
Now this really depends on the guy, it really depends on your relationship, it depends on you as a person. Some people are really into giving gifts and these big elaborate grand gestures that people see as like classically romantic. And for some people, romantic is just them remembering what date your anniversary falls on. But overall, Australian culture is known for being like a really laid back and chill culture, and this does kind of translate into dating. But again, everyone you're dating is different. Whether they're Australian or American, I don't think you can really generalize when it comes to being romantic, because that's really going to depend on the person that you're dating. If you are liking this video so far, guys, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. I post weekly about moving to Australia and the differences between American and Australian cultures. Number 5 is kind of a mouthful. Thou shalt quietly admire his casual bravery and grit, but ensure he looks after himself. Now, Australians and Australian culture as a whole does seem to have this like get it done kind of attitude. Don't whinge and complain, you just grit your teeth and bear it and get it done. I mean, of course, some of them will still whinge and complain, but they still get the job done. But I think that this point here kind of extends beyond just cultures and Australian culture. I think it's really important to check in with your partner, make sure that they're doing well, make sure that they're okay and that they're taking care of themselves. Especially if you know that your partner's like the workaholic type. You really want to check in and make sure that they're taking care of themselves. When I say check in, not in like the nagging mother hen kind of way. You don't want to be your partner's mother or their father, either way. But making sure that they're taking care of their health, making sure that they're taking care of their mental health, their physical well-being, making sure that they have time to unwind, to reconnect with people. That is really important, honestly, in any relationship. Checking in with each other, making sure that the other person is doing okay, making sure that your partner knows that you're somebody who can support them, who is there for them. This goes way beyond just Australian culture, way beyond American and Western cultures. I think this is important in any kind of healthy relationship. So commandment number 6, this one does come with a trigger warning. I'm going to drop the timestamp below for you guys to jump over to commandment number 7. If you need it, there are also resources listed down below. Please use them if you or somebody who's close to you needs these. But number 6, thou shalt open his heart for him. So I'm really glad that they brought this up in the article, because mental health is an issue throughout all different cultures that I think is not talked about enough, especially after this whole panorama time. Mental health has been a huge crisis, especially in Australia with all of the lockdowns that have happened. And overall, this does kind of tie into the last point as well, making sure that your partner is okay, making sure that each other is doing okay, checking in, and just overall being a supportive partner. Like, I don't want to generalize the way the article kind of does. I'm just saying that all Aussies are stoic, but I do think that there is something in Western cultures. I've seen this in American culture, I've seen it in Australian cultures, where men have difficulty being able to reach out when they need help. Like, there's this notion in Western society, and again, this is a little bit of a generalization, but there's this notion that showing emotion is weak, and that if men are showing emotion, they're weak. And I know this is, again, very much a generalization. Please don't come at me for this. But when you are raised in a culture where showing emotion is weak, you're going to have trouble reaching out. You're going to have trouble opening up a little bit more and talking to people, even if it's your partner, about what's really going on. Like, we hear all these ideas of toughen up, men don't cry, and calling men who do cry like a sissy or a wimp. When they're hearing these sorts of things growing up, even if it's just meant to be playful between each other, men are going to start to clam up, and they're not going to open up when they need to, especially when they're talking about mental health and emotions. And part of being in a healthy relationship, whether you're in a relationship with a man or a woman, is knowing that your partner is there for you, that your partner's there to support you, and that you're there to support them. More so that your partner can be open and honest and trust you without there being any kind of backlash if they reach out to you. Like, some of these statistics are heartbreaking. LifeLine Australia says that 9 Australians commit suicide every single day, and 75% of them are men. And it's actually the leading cause of death for Australians between the ages of 15 and 44. Obviously, there is clearly a mental health crisis going on in Australia right now. And I feel like mental health crisis is a phrase that journalists have just watered down so much that when we hear mental health crisis, it almost rolls off of us now. But the numbers shows that there is a huge need for mental health services and outlets throughout Australia. So I have some helplines and some services down below to help that are Australian based if you are in Australia. If you think you or your partner needs any help, if any friends or family you know might need any help, please check out the resources that I have down below for you guys. These are some great resources to help, especially during these tough times. And check in on your partner. Make sure that they're doing okay. Make sure that they know that you're doing okay. This is a tough time for a lot of people, and obviously just checking in can be a lifesaver, literally, for some people. Number 7, thou shalt respect the sanctity of mateship. I think while there always needs to be boundaries in a relationship, it's important for both people to give each other time to spend with their friends. Not just for Australians, but for most people, their friends are very important to them, and they're going to be a very important part of their life. So it's important that both of you give each other the space that you need in order to foster those friendships. It's very toxic to want to be with somebody 24/7. Nobody wants to be that clingy partner. Nobody wants to have absolutely no life outside of their relationship. Like, there is a balance that needs to be met so that way you guys can actually grow together and still grow apart as individuals as well. Chances are, if you're with somebody long term, their friends are going to be a part of your life and your friends are going to become a part of their life. Like, we're very lucky that Mark has some really amazing friends who are honestly more like brothers to him than just friends.
A wise man once told me, family don't end in blood. But it doesn't start there either.
Whether you're in a relationship with an Australian, an American, a whoever, giving them a chance to grow those friendships is going to be important to maintain a healthy relationship. Number 8, thou shalt have a sly sense of humor. So I know it's a stereotype for Australians to have like a really good sense of humor. They're all laid back, chill, funny people. But for the most part, the stereotype is actually pretty true. Not just the Aussie guys, but Aussie women as well, they have an amazing sense of humor. Like, there's just this dry wit and banter to Aussie humor. Like, it's not as dry as British humor tends to be, but they definitely don't shy away from making jokes at each other's expense. And they do it at their own expense too. And honestly, at the end of the day, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? So if you're dating an Australian, you do need to have a good sense of humor, a well-developed sense of humor, and also not take things too seriously when you're around an Australian. Like, most Aussies aren't the stiff-lipped, uptight kind of guys. They have a very chill sense about them. They have a great sense of humor. And that's something that you're going to have to get used to if you're dating an Australian guy. Number 9, thou shalt feel free to be yourself around him. This one I 100% agree with. And this isn't the case from just dating Mark. This is just talking to any Australian I've met. I've never felt like I've had to put on any kind of front with any of my Aussie friends. I've never felt like I've had that mask on when I'm around them. Like, I could just be myself. And I think that is such an amazing thing that a lot of Australians kind of bring out in the people around them. You can be yourself. You can have a joke, you can have a sense of humor, you can laugh at yourself, make fun of yourself, make fun of them even. They take things not as seriously as most Americans do. Like, I've met a lot of Mark's extended family, and they're, for the most part, all really open and welcoming and friendly people, and it never felt like it was fake. There was never anything that felt forced whenever I was interacting with Mark's friends or his family or any of my own Aussie friends. Maybe this does come from the Australian culture, the whole notion of being laid back and chill, or maybe it's something else different entirely. But pretty much every Australian I've met, I've been able to be 100% myself around them. And number 10, and we're back to sports. Thou shalt speak the language of football. So no. You don't need to learn another language in order to date an Australian who just happens to be into sports. If you want to take up an interest or at least learn a little bit about your partner's hobby, that is great. It can be a bonding experience, and you never know. Their hobby might actually be something you genuinely enjoy, but I think learning a language, as they call this, is kind of ridiculous. Like, there's a lot of terminology that goes on in sports, and a lot of it is really specific terminology, and then you have the people who are involved in it, the athletes, the commentators, the coaches, There's all these different aspects, and then there's names, and then there's statistics. Like, how much are you supposed to learn in order to make your partner happy? I feel like if you don't like footy, that's fine, then don't watch it. Just because your partner enjoys it doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. Your partner's hobbies do not have to become your hobbies. And you know what? Your partner doesn't have to do the hobbies you like either. There's nothing wrong with having separate interests, separate hobbies, and you don't have to learn a language of your partner's hobby. I think that's kind of a ridiculous commandment in all of this, but I guess maybe they were running out of ideas. And the last commandment, the 11th commandment, to sum this whole thing up: thou shalt add liberal salt to these commandments. Obviously, in this last point, again, kind of a generalization that all relationships are different. You can't date an Australian guy and expect all Australian guys to be the same. The same way you can't date an American woman and expect them to all be the same. Every culture has people who are different, even if they share a culture. The article basically just says that you need to have boundaries and respect in your relationship, and that you need to be able to support your partner in their time of need. And obviously taking away some of the stereotypes and taking away a lot of the sports references that were made in this article, I think that is absolutely true. A lot of this goes for really any relationship, not just a relationship with an Australian guy. Overall, if you're going to take anything serious away from this article, it wasn't meant to be a serious article in the first place. But if you're going to take away anything serious, make sure that you are there to support your partner, make sure that you guys have healthy boundaries in place, and make sure that you both have solid respect for each other. And I think that goes far beyond just dating an Australian guy. I think that goes for when you are dating anybody. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. It is completely free to you guys and helps grow this channel. I post weekly about moving to Australia and the differences between American and Australian cultures. My name is Caitlin. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!